I'm Megan Waldrop, host of the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast, an extension of an online community for partners to connect and feel less alone. Our podcast invites fishermen, family, friends, and supporters of the industry to learn, laugh, vent, and hear stories about this incredibly unique way of life. What do you say? Let's dive in. Hey POCFs, how is everybody doing out there? I know there's probably a lot of mixed emotions, especially if your partner's in Alaska. Reports of low numbers in Bristol Bay and I don't know, maybe surrounding areas. All I know is from Bristol Bay, making people wonder, okay, so how are we going to make our money stretch? What do we do now if we're not getting the income that we thought we were going to get? Yes, believe me. We understand what that's like. And I know a lot of y'all probably know more than most people. So today we're going to talk about finances, and I'm bringing this up because of this is the topic of conversation amongst our community, and also just so we can have a better idea of how to even manage our income. It fluctuates so much. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if seasons are going to be gangbusters amazing, or we don't know if they're going to be shut down, or we don't know if there's going to be low numbers. So first I'm going to say, as y'all know, I'm not a financial expert. I'm still learning along with y'all. So everything that I share with you today is things that I've learned from people in our community. So I'm going to share with you two partners of commercial fishermen who have been with their fishermen for over 30 and 40 years, and to learn how they've been able to plan. I also am excited to have more people come on the podcast to discuss this, including financial experts who actually have more of a robust understanding of finances. Like I said, I'm still figuring it out. It's a constant tweak, number crunch, and excuse me, and also swallowing the pride and getting humble and getting real with the numbers as much as it can be such a hard conversation. To be real for a second, Chris and I, we've always we've had different views on money. And so getting us on the same page with finances has been a journey, I will say. And what's really been helpful for us is to respect each other's, needs of feeling that safety net, whoever or however that is. And also to designate a time to discuss money. Sometimes, in the past, we would just be driving down the road talking about anything. And then we just start talking about money, and it would just totally change the mood. It would totally add stress, and it was not functional. It was not helpful at all. So what we've since done, and this is actually a piece of advice that we got from a POCF that I will share more advice on. We set a time aside to discuss money. So for example, I'd say, all right, Sunday for an hour, we're going to sit down and talk about budgeting or income or, what the future next several months looks like. And this is our time to discuss this. And then after that, we don't have to talk about it anymore. And before that, we don't have to talk about it. But for this hour, we're going to have a power hour of actually adulting and getting this done. It's so funny because I actually put a timer on my phone. That's how structured it was. Also, just to give us some kind of a end zone of, okay, we are in a sacred space to talk about money, and it will end at some point. But it was funny. We'd start off really composed. Okay, so here's what's going on, and this is where my thoughts are, and here are your thoughts. I could feel us both starting to get really tense. Our body, what do you call it? The way that we handled ourselves, you could just tell we were tensing up, maybe kind of shrinking away. Then I just have to remind him and me, I'm like, listen, we just have to get through this. We only have this much time left to discuss it, and then we don't have to talk about it anymore. And that really helped, take the air out. I mean, in the best way possible. So we were able to get through it. And after we were done, we thought, oh, okay, this wasn't so bad. I feel so much better now that we've discussed this and we have a clear view of how we're going to tackle the next 3-6 months, however long it was at that moment. So I'm throwing that out there in case you also feel some kind of stress and anxiety around money and talking about money. It's, set aside time to talk about it with your partner, or even put a timer if that's helpful, and just get down to brass tacks. So that's what we're going to do here. And like I said, yes, Bristol Bay, people are feeling the stretch, feeling the stress. I know people have felt the stress and the stretch in different fisheries all over the country, all over the world. Dungeness crab was shut down a few years ago. Salmon fishery in California was shut down for a couple years, and I could go on. So yeah, what do we do? What's our financial plan of attack, right? So I'm going to give a little background real quick. So for those who sign up for the newsletter, you know that Chris actually came back early from Bristol Bay. He actually was back by the 4th of July, second time we've ever spent the 4th of July together since he's been up there for 15, 16 years. So that was a treat. However, when he said he was coming home early, I definitely had a moment of wigging out about finances. I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. Are we okay? Like, what are we going to do? We're not going to have this money to rely on. Side note, we can't ever have money to rely on when it comes to fishing. I think we know this. However, I was thinking, okay, quick research, going through my brain vault of, okay, what do we do? Okay, thank God we had a conversation before he left, and I know that we were going to be okay. That Bristol Bay wouldn't really affect us. He ended up going up there to help launch a boat instead of working on a boat. He, personal reasons, wants to save his body to, do the spiny lobster season. 6 months on, and then 1 month shoulder seasons to prepare. And it's just really strenuous lifting those traps and everything like that. So, I totally obviously get that and support him 100%. However, that moment of, oh, you're coming back was a moment of panic. And thankfully we had those conversations that were like, okay, we can make this work until, knock on wood, spiny lobster season, and see what happens from there. So, however, then learning about the numbers in Bristol Bay, I thought, oh my gosh, my heart goes out to everybody who is going through this, because that feeling can be it's like a tight knot in your chest sometimes, And it goes to show that, whether you're a fisherman, who knows if they get hurt, the seasons get canceled, the low seasons, or they decide that they're going to maybe try something else or wait, or maybe take a mental health break, because that's very important and necessary as well. How are we going to move forward? So I'm going to share what 2 POCFs in our community do and have done when seasons have tanked or were closed. Like I mentioned, they've been with their fishermen for over 20 and 40 years. And so I want to pass along this knowledge to see if anything inspires you. Of course, do what makes you feel more comfortable. Also highly recommend talking to a financial advisor at your bank that you trust, or maybe go around to different financial advisors or different banks if you're kind of on the search, and to see who you gel with, if you will, and whose advice you feel like feels more like what you guys are needing and wanting for your future. So this first one is with Maureen Marinkovich. We had her on the podcast, I guess it was over a year ago now. I can't even believe it. But Maureen is a family friend. She is from San Juan Island, Washington. Her husband Matthew is a third generation fisherman. His brother fishes. I think there might be a couple brothers. Sorry, Marinkoviches, if I'm getting this wrong. I think there's a couple brothers who have been fishermen. The daughters are fishermen. It's amazing. It's a very robust fishing family. So they not only have, do they sell fish, sockeye salmon in the Bristol Bay, they also sell wild caught fish directly to consumers. And they've done that for over 20 years in San Juan Island. And you can learn more about the family business through mattsfreshfish.com. So here's what Maureen had to say about budgeting. She said, eventually, I realized we were going to have to come up with a system where we both agreed on what we were going to spend. The only thing outside the budget that generally becomes the categories that people can get in arguments over is discretionary income, like clothing, home, household goods, things like that. But you can usually hammer down groceries and bills. She said, but I'm going to tell you, if fishermen's families have budgets, you will have wealth in your future, and you will have far fewer arguing and incidences of confusion over finances. It'll just be something that's taken care of. So whoever does the budgeting, however you like to do it, it doesn't really matter what system. It's just sort of like figure it out. And that's budgeting. I've heard from so many different POCFs, like that is how you do it. And this is also when the POCF's duties start to come in. Like if you're dating a fisherman and maybe you're going to get married to your fisherman, and congratulations, by the way. Things like this come up and you're like, you know what, let me just handle it. So then this is when the POCF duties start to stretch and you're realizing, oh, I'm really am a vital part of this business and helping to keep this whole operation afloat because you're taking time out to learn how to work numbers, how to budget. I mean, really, honestly, this is what Maureen suggests. She first suggests assess what you do for a living and how many different fisheries you're involved in and whether or not you have a W-2 income on the side from a job that you have in the off season. And then after you've assessed all your incomes, stick to the bad season budget every year, even when you have good seasons. I've heard this multiple times. And to start with a budget, if it's feeling overwhelming, Maureen says, just start with anything and get it down on paper. It doesn't matter how you do it. Just write down how much you think is coming in every month and how much is going out. Basically, throw numbers and then start to refine those numbers month after month. For example, she mentions paying home insurance once a year instead of every month to get a discount if that's available. In North Carolina, I tried that. We don't get a discount with a year, but apparently some states do. Washington, I guess, is one. Maybe it depends on the insurance company as well. And she said that you'll start to figure out where you're going to save a little bit of money here and there, and you just keep refining and working on your budget. Now, when Chris and I started doing this and I started to do the budget, I felt overwhelmed because I'm like, I don't know where to start. And I did what Maureen said. I just started throwing numbers. And then eventually, after a few years, I'm like, okay, this is what our set is. This is how much goes out every month-ish, Power obviously is going to be higher in the South anyway, in the summertime, because it's freaking hot outside and we need that AC going. And also, groceries and fuel, gas, things like that. But eventually it was like, okay, I see a pattern here. I see what's actually going out. We have a set mortgage now. We have, set bills that do not change every month, like our internet, things like that. So it was nice to actually have somewhere to start. And we're like, okay, so we'll budget here. And then next month when we had our power hour, it's like, okay, is this enough money? Honestly, instead of going, yeah, it's fine. It's like, no, seriously, like, is this enough money? Because if you're gone fishing and I'm here wigging out about bills, like that can't happen. I can't do that. I'm already working through my money stuff. So, and if we're all working through our money stuff, maybe, or maybe you're not. And if not, please write a book about it and tell us your ways. Okay. So Maureen also says you're going to have two different kind of partners and commercial fishermen. Ones that reinvest in the fishery a lot and some that just sort of move along in that way of reinvesting in the fishery, or you have others that invest in other areas of life. For example, maybe you want to save for a house or buy land or property, things like that. And when it's time to do it, it helps to have a chunk of change set aside for your retirement. Yes, that is a thing too. Retirement, right? Hello. But yeah, it is nice to have a chunk of change set aside for sure if you want to do a down payment on a home. And yeah, thank God we were able to do that over the several years. And I'm thankful that we were having those hard conversations, probably maybe 4 years ago. How long have we been together? We've been together for almost 9 years in August. And yeah, we've had these conversations. We probably just started getting our shiz together like 3 to 4 years ago. But man, it was so tough in the beginning just to have those freaking conversations. But like Maureen says, just the basic advice is to find a budget dollar amount that sort of maximizes the worst seasons, or at least find an average, but don't live on the money as it comes in because some years are better than others. Hello. Yeah, we've done that. It's fun while it's happening. And then you're like, what the hell did we do? And okay, what are we doing? We need to figure our shiz out. She said, and this is exactly it. She said, if you get into that habit of living on the money as it comes in, you're going to be in feast or famine mode. And she said that she's had years where you're kind of waiting for the next paycheck, and that's no fun. She said, I try to help everyone avoid stress. Yes, I'm sure we can all understand that. The whole waiting for the next paycheck thing, oh gosh. Yeah, let's get out of that, right? So I'm going to pause real quick. My goal here is to get as many resources, advice from people who actually understand our lifestyle, get financial experts on, collect all of these resources and offer them to you. I mean, this is what I want. I want for us to all thrive. So we have a system. All right. So how do we deal with money? How do we deal with anxiety? How do we deal with our partners being gone for a long time? These main pain points that we have, I want to make sure that we're able to have what we need. I mean, the survival guide, the how to go from what the F to F yes, that is such a great starting point. If you haven't heard about it, check it out. It's on the blog at POCFpride.com. The survival guide is clutch, especially if you just started dating a fisherman, to tell you what to expect and even have conversations with them and build your own life. But regardless, the survival guide is only the beginning of what I want to offer to y'all. So this is also part of that as well. I hope I've been doing that over the past several years. But now I feel like I'm getting more streamlined and hopefully having better systems to deliver that to you. My forum members know they have all of these budget bonuses, money and money books, all this stuff. All those links are in the forum, which is where these resources lie. It's like a growing bank of resources. And if you're interested in the forum, you can go to the POCFpride.com and learn more about that as well. Until then, we're just going to keep trucking and we're just going to keep sharing advice. Again, not professional, but people who actually get our lifestyle. This is how it's done for them. This is what works for them. You figure out what works for you. No stress. The only thing that I want for you is to not have stress over money because it sucks. Anyway, so let's see. Oh, this is another big one. It's just as important to know that if you have a job that doesn't withhold taxes, you have to remember to withhold your taxes. Man, right? The taxes. Taxes. However, it is nice to have roads, nice roads and sidewalks and traffic lights that work. I mean, that's what we're paying for amongst many other things. Just, getting used to setting aside money for that, for certain, she calls it certain specific buckets of expenses and savings. And across the board, 30% is recommended to take out for taxes, just so you have that cushion to pay at the end of the year. And so her husband is a boat operator, and her husband receives salary from the corporation. She says some fishermen pay themselves a salary through a corporation. Others do it differently. But I like the salary because I have a budget. It's a monthly budget, even though income comes in chunks. I know exactly how much money goes out every single month because there are regular bills. And that's how I devised my system. We always make the minimum. She said whatever is usually left sits around the business account or gets dispersed as needed. And when she's managing her money, she mentions using Quicken for the personal side of things. And then she uses QuickBooks for the business side. And they definitely use a CPA because they keep abreast of all the latest tax laws to make sure that you are getting the best savings that you possibly can and to make sure there's no loose ends. Obviously, we don't want the IRS knocking on our door. We got enough going on. She said, Maureen's advice, looking back, if she could change one thing, she would fully fund her IRAs. She said, I would have been on a budget a lot earlier or on a tighter budget a lot earlier, but budgeting is a process. So just know that if you're building a budget for the first time or you're tweaking your budget, just know that it's not going to be an instant ta-da, it is a process. We're all going through it. You are not alone ever. Okay. So the second POCF is Jolene Colomy from Santa Barbara. She's a family friend, and she and her fisherman have known my father-in-law, my father-in-law is a former spiny lobster fisherman. They've known him since I believe he started fishing in the 80s. So years ago, I asked Jolene if I could interview her. We sat on her back patio and talked about life with her fisherman while raising 2 daughters. And this is an excerpt from the interview regarding money. And I'm putting the links to Maureen's podcast and Jolene's blog in the show notes if you'd like. So I asked, how did you handle the fluctuating income from fishing? And she said, when we first got together and I was working, I was making a paltry amount of money compared to what he could make in the lobster industry. It wasn't all that much money either, so we were both just kind of getting by. However, our bank account was really nice and big in March, but we couldn't put 2 dimes together by the time we got to August. That's when we decided to make a budget. Yep, the budget comes back in, y'all. And the budget included the power, the rent, the insurance, those kinds of things. We asked, how much is that costing us per month? Then divided it by 12 months. We would pay our property tax in full in December because we knew we'd have enough money in December. Because when March or April came around, who knew? We were also able to establish a budget that we have kept to this day, which includes, and this is so important, she says, give each other an allowance. We give ourselves an allowance, which we take out in cash, and he gets his allowance, which is the same amount I get. For example, she said, I can use it to get my nails done. He can use it to play golf. And there were no restrictions on what the other could use for their money. The only restriction was when it ran out, you couldn't get more until next month. So you had to stay within that amount of money. We were very generous with ourselves at the time, and we've never raised it. We've told so many young couples in the fishing industry to set a realistic budget. And remember, there are those annual things that come up that you have to deal with, and you got to plan for them. But don't forget yourself, because that way, if you want to go and do something like buy a new purse or buy a new shoes or get your nails done, it's available for you. I love her advice. Jolene's just the best. I don't know if y'all know Jolene Colomy out there. I mean, is she not just wonderful? Maureen too. Every POCF that I met is just incredible. It's just been really nice to intimately get to know these women over the years, just through our family connections. And I can't wait to get to know more POCFs more intimately as we move along in our amazing journey of being POCFs together. Okay, so I asked her, so I said, so you have a budget and allowance, but how do you plan for the future? And this is where she breaks it down. They have all joint accounts, by the way, and they have 3 accounts. She said, we have 3 accounts and they're all joint accounts. We have one we call a savings account. Both of us put our entire paychecks into that account. 2, we have a house account. We take a draw at the beginning of every month to cover all the month's expenses, including our allowances. 3, he has a boat account where boat things get paid out of that account. It's interesting. I love seeing how people do things so differently. And I said, so how do you figure out his paycheck? So this is how they do it. She said he puts 1/3 of his gross income into the boat account because he knows that if he doesn't keep the boat going along and doing all that kind of stuff, then we're SOL. So 1/3 of the money goes for his income goes into that boat account. It just sits there. 2/3 of his income goes into the savings account. The house draw is the same every month. The difference is when it's time to pay property taxes and insurance once a year. The other thing that we are finally able to do, and this has taken a good long while, is that if we can't afford to buy it, we don't. Cash, only cash. I love that. I said, how do you manage money during good and bad seasons? And she said, if Jim had a good year, we would use some extra cash to pay down on the house. In the good years, we bought a vehicle. If we didn't have a good year, we just managed to do his 1/3, the house draw, and the savings account just kind of sat there holding its own. And we wouldn't buy anything or do anything. Basically, they hunkered down. Okay, I'm going to pause here because actually, I have more resources coming, and I have an interview. I'm super excited with Jenny Gore-Dwyer. You might know her from formerly of Deadliest Catch, and also she is a matriarch of our community. Jenny's been such a huge support since the beginning, and I truly appreciate her. So I'm going to interview her and ask how Jenny and her husband, Pat, were able to not only make a fishing business work, but create a legacy empire. I mean, now they went from one boat, figuring that out, to I believe they have 3 right now. And now her son, Sean Dwyer, is running the boat with our other girl, Bree Dwyer, POCF from the beginning as well. And it's just, they are such a great example of just like the big business of commercial fishing in that sense. I mean, I feel like there's different tiers of it. You have the little boats. I feel like we're little boats, Chris and I, because he has a 32 footer, a main H&H lobster boat that's in the Channel Islands Harbor in California. And then we have POCFs that have multiple. We have a fleet of boats, which is incredible. And at the core of it, we all are trying to figure out how to make the money work. It's not like everybody's handed, oh, you're getting a fleet. Here's a book on how to run a fleet, or, oh, here's a small, fishing boat book. I don't know. Maybe that's something that we're building together right now on this podcast through the POCFpride.com. I mean, that's the dream. But I just want to share all this because it's just fascinating to learn how people do it differently. Money is it's a fluid situation. It's a different situation for everybody, regardless of how you've grown up, your view of it now in adulthood. And it can really, it doesn't have to be something that's scary. It can be something that we that is just another tool in our lives. And that's what I want for myself and for Chris and I. And that's what I want for you too. I want it to be something that's like, oh, we got this on lock. No matter what, we got this. Eventually I'm still searching. If anybody out there knows of a financial expert, I have a couple that I'm waiting to hear back from, but I would love to learn more about investments. I mean, property, even if it's stocks, anything. I want to know how people are pulling extra income in. That would be really cool to know as well. So yeah, that's all for today. Keep listening. The series is going to keep going. I'm going to hop off because I literally am about to talk to Jenny in about, 17 minutes. So I'm going to prep for that. And then I have some more advice from other partners of commercial fishermen in our private chat community. And I love to hear how they also worked with money. So that is coming up for sure. If you have any questions, you can email me at support@pocfpride.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at megan.waldrip, and let me know your financial questions, because I'd love to ask them to other POCFs, but also ask financial experts so we can get down to business in the best way possible. Yes, that is what we need, because I want us to thrive. It's, you can't control life. We know life is not perfect. We know this. If anybody knows that you have to be flexible, it's commercial fishing families. It's partners of commercial fishermen. And now that we have all this incredible wisdom from people who have done this for years in the modern world as we know it, I feel that it's time, we can harness all these thoughts, advice, tips, and resources together and really make a difference in our own lives where we don't have to stress out about money. We can make this work. We can grab money by I don't know what to say, by whatever you think I was about to say, and in a very gentle, not violent way, make it our friend. You know what I mean? Yeah, you could psychoanalyze this entire podcast episode to see how I stand about money, I guess. But yeah, I'm just a human trying to figure it out like everybody else. And I'm here to share as much as I can to help you figure it out and make your lives easier. So contact me if you have any questions, because I would love to relate those questions to people who have answers and get those answered for you, because I'm here for you. That's what we're here. That's what we're doing right now. So thanks for being here. Always, we would not be a community without you. If you haven't heard it yet lately, you are so loved and appreciated, and you are valued more than you could ever know. And getting all emotional because y'all know me. But yeah, I appreciate y'all so much. And with love and POCF pride, till next time. Thank you so much for listening. To support our community, I'd so appreciate it if you'd tap the subscribe button to this podcast or write a review. And if you're a POCF who wants to connect further, go to POCFpride.com for weekly blogs and to learn about opportunities to join our private communities. We'd love to have you.